G'day, how's going? Paul here. Yeah, this is going to be a bit of a brief video on my Cleveland oiling experiences. One part of the deal only. There's a lot to it. Chris Finlayson asked me to put this, would I mind putting a bit of a video together? And I said no problems. I at least owe you that much, well and truly. I've been racing Clevelands for, well, back since the mid-80s in Class 8 off-road cars. Never made as much power as what we made now, but we had a heap of fun, and we didn't turn them much over 6,500. The things held together, never had any issues at all, very basic. We had them in road cars, again, very basic type deal, didn't turn them very hard, 65, that was about it. And yeah, sort of however you threw them together, they lasted, they worked, they come apart looking good. I'm a diesel fitter by trade, so I do a fair bit of engine work at work, and I've had a lot to do with these things over the years. We race this car, as a lot of people know, it's just a 2V standard stroke deal. Goes pretty good for what it is. Makes good horsepower. Touch wood, it's pretty reliable now. When we raced the car in Super Street, we used to, the engine would come apart every, 400 or 500, maybe 1,000 passes, and you pull it apart, bearings look perfect. You put them back in if you had to. You change them because you felt guilty. But thing will always come apart good. We were pretty successful in Super Street, thankfully, and we decided to run in the next bracket, Super Sedan, and we want to go a bit quicker. So we started leaning on the old girl a bit and twisting it a bit harder. So Super Street, we wouldn't turn it much past 7,200. When we go to Super Sedan now, we turn the thing to 78, 8, and that's on a good pass. And what do you know? We started to have issues in the bottom end. I cut the filter religiously, and back in 2012, when we started to get fair income in Super Sedan, and we were pushing it harder, got to the point where basically every 12 to 15 passes, you do a meeting, sometimes 2 meetings, and you cut the filter, have a look, and you probably find a dozen, that'll be about it, tops, pieces of bare metal in the filter. Non-magnetic, pinhead size, wasn't bad, but you go, well, okay, this has come from somewhere, I need to sort it out. So out would come the engine, and every time, I'd start to see a bit of distress on both number 2 and number 7 rod bearing. Never any of the rest. They were perfect. Cam bearing's fine. I mean, cam bearings in these things always show a bit of distress because how they're oiled is not right. And main bearing's never an issue. This thing used to be externally balanced, so hey, it's got a 4 MAB crank in it. They flex around like silly putty, so you are going to see a bit of distress in the mains where it's you've got that the weight at the front, the weight on the rear, external. It's the crank's going everywhere. But anyway, rod bearings 2 and 7, they were hurting. So I pulled the thing apart, feed another set in, and to do it again. So I got to the point basically where I talked to a heap of people, good, reputable Cleveland builders in the US, here in Australia. Won't go into names, but very reputable people. And I did everything from, I run loose clearances in this thing at the moment, but I did everything. I tightened clearances up to, say 2.8, 2.8 on the rods, 2.5 on the mains, I chased the clearances between the tight and the loose side. I high volume pumps, I tried low volume pumps, I've had external lines on it. Basically every combination of trying to make number 2 and number 7 rod bearing live, I tried. What else we do? Oh, we put lifter bushes in the thing. Bought a kit from over in the US. Went in fine. Never helped the issue whatsoever. The lifter bushing is a great thing, especially if you're going to use a roller lifter. The bushings are a great thing there because most of the roller lifters you buy nowadays are undersized compared to a flat tappet lifter. So you'll, by virtue of that lifter bore clearance, you're punching a lot of oil to the top end. You're also pissing a lot of oil into up top into the valley and down out of the bottom of the lifter. So yeah, when you go, if you want to go to a solid roller, you really got to watch where your lifter bore clearances are and how much oil you're pouring away. But with a flat tappet lifter, if the metering, there's a lot of different metering styles in your flat tappet lifters. If they're a stingy, like a good design, and I'll call them stingy, as a mate of mine calls them, you don't have a problem. As long as the lifter bore clearance is good, the lifter bores aren't flogged out. Mate, it doesn't matter whether you have lifter bore bushes or not. With a flatty, it's not an issue. As I said, if the lifter bore clearance is good, if the metering style of lifter is fine, lifter bushes aren't going to help you one iota. Anyway, yeah, lifter bore bushes in it too. We're still killing number 2 and number 7. So I think I had it in and out about 5 or 6 times after a meeting or 2 each time. So I was starting to get a bit old. I was starting to get over it. And as you could imagine, I was doing heaps of research. So on an old forum that no longer exists, I come across a guy. Can't even remember his login at the moment. But anyway, it was Chris from New Zealand, and I tracked him down and sent him an email and asked him some questions. He was alluding to some other issues. Anyway, we had a few emails backwards and forwards, and Chris basically pointed me along the lines of he thought there was an issue with the crankshaft oil timing, and he wasn't going to tell me what he thought or what the answers were. He wanted me to think about it and look into it and see what I could come up with. So I thought, well, I wouldn't mind someone telling me straight up, but for me, this was a good challenge, so I'd have to turn the grey matter on. So, that was the challenge. So, we got the engine apart again, and we're still having the same issue. So I decided I wanted to look at, I wanted to learn a bit about crankshaft oil timing. And it's pretty interesting. Especially very interesting when you look at a Chev crank and you look at a Cleveland crank. You look at a Holden crank and you realise they're worlds apart. The old Chev, the Holden oils the big end before you got that, before the bang in the cylinder. It oils it before top dead centre. So when you got maximum load on that upper rod bearing, it's seeing engine oil pressure straight to that point. And you look at when you map a Cleveland out, but that Cleveland doesn't see engine oil pressure till if you're working like a clock cycle till about 3:30 or 4 o'clock down the bottom. So the bang's already happened. The piston's just about at the bottom, and with a half groove bearing, it turns on then. Then it goes around about 9 o'clock or so and turns off. So you go, far out, how's this work? So anyway, we went through and mapped out cylinders 1 to 8, and let's see what differences we can see with where does 2 and 7 come into it. Well, 2 and 7, there's basically 2 differences with 2 and 7. 2 and 7 are fed from number 2 and number 4 main. They're both fed from that main, and that main feeds 2 cylinders off that main bearing. But as well as that, they're actually, the timing to both number 2 and number 7 are retarded by about 20 degrees. This is approximately. So we saw that, and that flagged up to me as a possible issue. And also in the back of my head, we're thinking about, you know, most people will be familiar about Durabond's drawings online about what a hydrodynamic wedge is. So with that in the back of our mind, we thought about, well, okay, how is this system actually, how's it living? And basically what I came up with was with a half groove bearing in a Cleveland, the way the crank is oiled, we're actually oiling the rod bearing down the bottom, the pistons nearly down the bottom of the stroke, but then after it turns off and the piston's back up to the point where you've got peak cylinder pressure on that upper rod bearing, that oil drilling in the crank is actually open to the area where this theoretical hydrodynamic wedge would have created a high pressure area. So if that's a real thing, which I've got no doubt it is, it's also open to that oil there. On 2 and 7 butt, by virtue of how the crank is drilled, at maximum cylinder pressure on that upper rod bearing, it sees neither engine oil pressure, and it doesn't see the oil from that hydrodynamic wedge either, because it's 20 degrees retarded. So it dips out on both. So we thought about that for a while and thought, well, okay, how can I verify this? How can I actually this is my theory. How can I make it work? Or how can I prove it? So righto, I'm going to put we've been running half groove main bearings. It didn't matter if I run what are they? A 270 degree, 3/4 groove mains. Didn't matter one iota. I still had 2 and 7 rod bearings. So I thought I'm going to put fully grooved bearings in 2 and 4 only, and let's see what happens. Let's see what happens to this shitbox. So we throw it back together. Loose clearances, standard pump. The one thing always come apart better with loose clearances. I'll run the 3.5 on the mains, 3.5 plus minimum, 3.2, 3.3 on the rods. Let's throw the engine back together, and we just fully groove that number 2 and number 4 main. So we threw it back together, and then back out into it, and from 12 to 15 passes where we were seeing metal, I did 150 passes, and then I did see some metal, but what I saw that from was I had a lifter bore bushing collapse. If you're going to use lifter bore bushings, you've got to make sure you're using Amco 45 bushes, a sintered bronze bush, where it's not supported around where the oil gallery is. The bush will vibrate because they're a porous bush, and they'll vibrate to a point, then they'll crack, and then guess what? You find shit in the oil filter. Anyway, so basically, when I pulled the engine apart then, the 2 and 7 rod bearings were good, and I was up until that point, we were cutting the filter again every meeting. Issue solved. So it's quite interesting, you see a lot of people online talk about, there's a recipe for making these things work. The old timers used fully grooved bearings. Well, it's 100% correct. I don't know whether they understood why. I'm not sure. Didn't matter. Hey, if it works, use it. You look back here in Australia in the 70s, the Phase 3 Falcons. You look in their manual supplements. They use a fully grooved bearing, and for a reason. So what I find interesting today is you'll see all these people online and in magazines and everywhere else. They'll talk about, you don't have to do anything to a Cleveland oiling system. And what you have to remember is today 95% of the Clevelands out there have a stroker crank in them. So all those stroker cranks are set up like a Chev. So how they're drilled is good. It fixes the issues. And So the nasties there don't rear their head. So yeah, big difference in how you set the engine up. If you're running a standard crank like I am, or you're running a stroker crank, yeah, big difference there you need to address to make the thing live. But yeah, I'm not going to get into the oiling system itself, so to speak. It's pretty good, you know. Like there's some things you need to do, but that's not the purpose of this video. This is purely about backing up Chris as what he's talking about with his crankshaft all timing. I did some research on and found a heap of interesting papers online as far as crankshaft all timing, like the design of it, you know, what happens with your hydrodynamic wedge, how all that part of it works, and it just reinforced in my head that yeah, this is a big issue and this is why it was shitting itself. So anyway, that's about all I've got. I'm very appreciative of the assistance Chris gave me, and I really thank him for pushing me and making me actually think about it for myself, because that's when you really learn something, rather than just watching all this stuff online that half the people haven't got a clue what they're talking about. I haven't actually done it. You know, it's easy to get on. It's easy to get on there, or you know, write something in a book, or say something about this is what you have to do. But you actually have to see whether it is successful. Like a lot of shops will send something out the door, and this is what you need to do to make it work. But do they ever see? How often do they see the thing come back? You know, like you want to look at the engine after, you know, X amount of 1,000 kilometres, or you know, however many 100 passes, and you have a look at what you've got, what you've been doing, and that's the only way you know whether it really works. So it's been a good exercise for me. The engine's been, I've had it parked several times since then, and now, touch wood, that's one issue we can cross off the list. Anyway, thanks Chris, hope you've enjoyed it. Yeah, a bit of a bogan video, there's no shout outs. I would like to thank John Barbagallo. Yeah, he's the guy that did the cylinder head work and a heap of advice. That's why the thing goes well. Dale Cubic, CFM carburetors in the US, he's awesome, does a good product. Tony O'Connor always keeps me thinking, and yeah, gives me things to think about. And there's a heap of other people out there, Bill from BK. Yeah, list is endless. But anyway, this is not about that. It's about crankshaft all timing with a standard Cleveland crank. So hopefully you'll have a think about it. And the old timers were onto it. Use fully grooved bearings. You do notice I've got a full set of fully grooved bearings in this thing at the moment. What do I notice? They filter's still spotless, and you see a mech here, less oil pressure, because you're oiling that rod bearing, those rod bearings all the time. Does it matter? Well, technically, you know, we want to, hey, I'm a drag racer, we want to control windage. You know, every bit of excess oil we throw there is going to slow us up. But at the end of the day, hey, does it really matter? The car keeps getting quicker. It's probably not 100% perfect, but it is what it is. I'll probably go back for curiosity when it comes apart next. I'll probably go back to just the fully grooved mains on 2 and 4, because there's no point, you know. Hey, I'm all about going quicker. I don't need the extra oil to the other rod bearings. It's only the 2 and 7. But I wanted to do the exercise with the fully grooved on all of them, and just see how the engine liked it. So it was a worthy exercise. For everyone out there that says they don't use a fully grooved bearing because you're losing support area in that bottom bearing, in the bottom shell. Mate, how many times have you seen a Cleveland hurt main bearings? They don't do it. You know, I've run fully grooved bearings years ago for 50 and 60,000 kilometres, and haven't had to grind the crank. The engine's come apart, looking good. That was years ago before I ever got into any of this, but I've had combinations with that in it. So yeah, no hesitations at all, sticking fully grooved bearings in one of these shitters. Okay, that's it. See yous.